Guys, it is time for me to complete the Caraval Trilogy. Now, I have already read Caraval. I read this in a different video and I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It was whimsical. It had me hooked. I was enchanted by the story and the journey and the characters. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars was because the ending felt like everything just wrapped up too nicely, and so it kind of took away from the main story of the book. That was the only reason I didn't give it 5 stars, but I really enjoyed it. And as soon as I finished reading this, I did in fact purchase the second and third books in this series. Now, there is a novella within this series, but I don't think I will read it. I might do it at some point, but it's not something that's a priority for me to read. I do, however, want to complete the trilogy, and these books aren't too long, so I don't think it would take me too much time, I'm hoping, but I really think I can get stuck into it and really enjoy finishing off this trilogy. And then we of course have the Once Upon a Broken Heart interconnected trilogy that I will read at a different point. This is going to be a spoiler full video because I want to be able to talk about all the things that happen. So let's just get into it. Let's start these. This is also one of the main series that I wanted to complete in 2026 because I started it in 2025 and I started so many book series and I really just want to complete them so I can really invest my time into new ones and just enjoy the whole story, because I found that I started a lot of series but I haven't been able to really get into them because I didn't complete them. So I'm hoping this is the start of that, but we will be completing this. I just want to make a lot of time for reading, but this is what I will be reading in this video. Okay, it has in fact been, I think, about 2 weeks since I filmed that intro, and I have not got round to starting it until today. I'm finally starting Legendary. I don't know why I put it off for so long or why it's been taking me so much time. I think partly because I've had a few other books that I've been trying to complete, a few other series that I've just been trying to finish before I get into this one. Secondly, I really enjoyed the first one and I'm a little bit worried that I'm not gonna like the second and third ones as much as I enjoyed the first one, especially since a lot of people that I hear who have read this trilogy and the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy only enjoyed Caraval and didn't necessarily like this or finale. That's what I've heard, so it's making me a little bit worried because I thoroughly enjoyed Caraval. I gave it 4.5 stars. Almost a 5-star, but it was 4.5 stars at the end. And yeah, I think that's just making me a little bit worried with, am I going to enjoy this that much? Is it not going to do what I want it to? But potentially it could be amazing. Either way, at least I would have finished this trilogy, which is definitely high up, because I also then want to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy after I've completed this one. And I think the main character in one of those books is introduced here or something like that, but let's just, finally start it. I will be starting today. It is also the weekend, so it's a perfect time to pick up a paperback and let's just do it. I did not read anything today, but it is the evening now and I am finally in the mood to start this. I know it's taking me so long. I don't know why. I do think it might take me a chapter or two just to get back into the story, but I don't think it would be too difficult because I really enjoyed the first book, so I remember quite a lot of it. I just need to get into the story and I don't know why I'm putting it off so much. So I'm hoping this evening I can get through a quarter, maybe a third of it, and it is quite, it's not a short book, but it's not that long either, so I don't think it would take me too long. And I remember the first book I read at a quicker pace than I normally do. I don't know if that was the book itself because I was enjoying it, or whether it was the layout, the font, or whatever else impacts that, but I know I need to start it, so let's hope that I do that tonight. Good morning. So I did read a little bit last night and I managed to get to chapter 7, which is 15% of the way through. I also purchased the book on my Kindle because I just find it so much easier to read on here, especially in the evenings when I'm in bed and I don't want to hold a book up. This is just so much easier, so I did do that, and like I said, I got to about 15%. I made a couple of notes whilst I was reading, so let's go through them. The first one was, what's going on? Okay, it did take me a minute to get back into the story, the characters, where we were, what was happening, especially because we basically pick up straight after Caraval, the first book, and it took me a minute to remember what was going on, like what was happening and who all of the characters were again and where we left off from the first book. So that took me a minute. The second note that I made was the mum, question mark, exclamation mark, because I couldn't remember what happened to the mum, where she went, any of it. So I'm glad that they kind of reiterated some of the information about her and her leaving, or well, we don't really know if she left or not, but kind of that information in that background because I had completely forgot. Then Prince of Hearts, he was mentioned. Now, I've heard a lot about him, and from what I know, he is a main character in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. However, I don't know if he has a big part to play in this book or in finale. And I don't know if Tella is the FMC in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. I assume not, because she's a main character in this book, and I think she's a main character in finale. So I assume there will be a new FMC in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy with the Prince of Hearts. But when I saw him, because I know so many people love him, so I was very excited when I saw that. But obviously I don't know much about him yet, and we'll see how that goes. But I think he'll be a fun character, and I think I'm only feeling that because I've heard so many good things about him as a character, especially in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. We'll see how that goes, but that was really fun to read. Then about chapter 3 or 4, I really felt like I was getting the vibes of the first book, because we're not in Caraval the game, but we're in the location. We've got those players. We've got I was really getting the feelings back of the adventure, the whimsy, the secrets and the mystery that we had in the first book, and I was getting into that again. So I'm so excited to kind of be back in this world because I really enjoyed it so much the first time. And I'm also a little bit worried because I enjoyed the first book so much, and it seems like where we're going in this book is we're going to be playing Caraval again. It can either go really well or it can go really bad, because either I'll really get the vibes of the first book, but it'll be a new story and it'll be fun and we'll have different characters and emotions and things happening, or it will be a rerun of the first book and it will just be the same thing again. So I don't know how that's going to go. I'm excited, but I'm also a little bit nervous that it might kind of not live up to what I'm hoping for, but I am hoping for the best. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, that's where I'm at. So I am hoping to read quite a bit today and tomorrow. Usually I do the bulk of my reading during the week, and the weekends I have for kind of catching up with people, going to Pilates, watching TV and catching up in that way, and also my other arts and crafts things like book journaling and things like that I don't always fit into the week. However, this weekend I've got quite free, so I'm hoping that I will be able to read quite a lot of this today and tomorrow. Also, because I did start reading on my Kindle, I do need to transfer my annotations from here onto my physical copy. However, I don't know if I'm going to do that as I read or right at the end. But before, when I transferred all of my annotations from my Kindle to the physical copy, I got really bored. So I think it might be better if I do it throughout so that it doesn't start to irritate me, but we'll see. I did find that I felt like I was reading quickly when I was reading the physical copy and not so much when I was reading the Kindle. However, that only has happened with this book. That's never happened with any other books that I've read on both. So I don't know what's going on with that, but that's definitely something that I felt different, but that also could just be in my head. I also had some like neck and shoulder pain yesterday. So I used a neck pillow, you know, the ones that you use when you go to the airport. I used one of those and it helped with my pain so much, especially when I'm reading sitting up and I'm like looking down. So I'm going to try and do that more often because it really helped with those aches. But that's where we are. Let's see how it goes. I really want to read, so let's go and do that. Okay, so I am 40% of the way through Legendary. I'm just about to start chapter 18, which is pretty good. I've gotten through a decent amount of this book, and I, of course, made some notes whilst I was reading. Now, I didn't add the chapters that I thought these things, so I will remember to do that in the future, but let's run through them. First one is the rude nobleman, the heir that she's pretending to be engaged to, and I was right. Obviously, it makes sense. So I did get that correct. I did not, however, guess that he was Jax / the Prince of Hearts. So that was news to me. And I'm getting a little bit confused of who the MMC is. I think the MMC or the love interest in this story is going to be Dante, but I'm not quite sure about that. I mean, we are in Caraval, so it is all a game and I don't actually know what's real right now, but I think he's going to be the love interest, but I'm still not quite sure because I don't think it's Jax. Then my next question was, what is going on with Dante? I don't remember why I asked this. I think it was because of the, is he the love interest or not? I'm still not sure about that one. I like that Jax / the nobleman is the friend that has been sending letters to her. I think that's really fun. I really want to know how that came to be and what the mystery is behind that. And I don't know if we find that out in this book or in finale, because I'm not quite sure if finale follows this story as well. But I think that's really interesting. So I want to learn a lot more about that, how that came to be and what is going on with Jax, what he wants. One theory that I have is that he is cursed to exist in this state rather than as he wants to be. And that's why he wants the name of Legend, because that breaks the curse. I also did think that he was Legend, but then now that Tellers guessed that at the end of the previous chapter or the chapter before that, now it seems too obvious. So I don't know if that's actually going to come to pass, but I did initially think that and now I'm just not sure. I do wish we had more of Scarlet in this story, maybe a few of her POVs, because she was the main character in the first book, and I initially thought when the first book ended that her and Julian had a happy ending, but now we're finding out that, you know, they're having issues. I don't know if they're together or not, but they're definitely having issues. And I wish we had her POV and we could see that story come to pass, because it was obviously the main romance in the first book. And it's kind of sad that we're only getting little glimpses of it, but not as much as I want. So I do wish we had a bit more of that. I am getting interested in the story, but I do need some plot things to happen, okay? I need some big developments because it's not gripping me as much as I want it to. I'm interested, but I'm not hooked. I am interested in the mum, how she ended up in the card, all of that, but I'm still not quite gripped. I need some big plot things to happen and I'm just not getting that right now. I also do think I'm comparing it to Caraval, and at this point in Caraval, I was hooked. And maybe I should stop doing that, and maybe I just need to look at it as a separate book and enjoy what it is. I do think that's where a bit of the issue is coming from, but that's my thoughts. I forgot that Caraval was 5 nights only, and that does not seem like a very long time at all. And if it was 5 nights in the first book and Scarlet and Julian fell in love in 5 nights, that doesn't make sense to me. I thought it was longer than that, but am I getting mixed up? I don't know. Anyway, those are kind of my thoughts. I do just need a little bit more from the plot because I'm not getting that. And we're nearly halfway through and I'm not hooked. I'm enjoying it. It's a good read, but I'm not loving it. And I thought I would love it. And yeah, I do have quite a lot of questions, but I guess that's the point of the book. But I'm just not sure where we go and how it's going to develop and whether it's going to get me to the point of being hooked. But that's where I'm at the moment. Good morning. I am, in fact, now 80% of the way through Legendary. And originally I was going to come on here and tell you a couple of the quotes that I forgot to mention the other day. But now I don't want to because I'm really not enjoying the book. It's okay. I'm just not loving it. I'm not hooked. I don't love the characters or the story. I'm a little bit bored. Tella is boring me. I liked her in the first book, but I'm just not loving the story that she's got in this one. And the thing is, this book has so much potential. So I'm really disappointed in reading it so far. Now, that's not to say it's awful. It's just not what it could have been. And I'm quite sad about it. Now, one of the parts that I am personally disappointed with is the fact that a few chapters ago, we got a glimpse of Julian playing a new character or a new role in the Caraval game. And we've had a few glimpses of him and Scarlet, and we're just not getting enough of them, to be honest. Considering Scarlet was the main character in the first book, they were the main romance in the first book, and they didn't have a happily ever after, as we know from this book. I wish we had more of them to know what actually is happening between them and kind of just get more of them. Like, I wish this book was perhaps dual POV, Scarlet and Tella, so we get this new story, but we also get a bit more of a conclusion to that story, and Scarlet has more of a play in this. And considering Scarlet and Tella have both been in Caraval before, you would think they would be looking out for each other a little bit more than they are. It just feels like they're not, and they're not being smart about it. Another thing I don't like is about 3 or 4 times, Tella has mentioned that she thinks Scarlet is hiding something, and then she thinks, oh no, she's my sister, she can't be hiding anything. First of all, you're hiding stuff from her. Secondly, stop repeating it over and over again unless it's actually going to give us something to the plot, because right now it's just a nuisance. It's just you saying, I think Scarlett's hiding something. Oh no, she would never do that, but she seems suspicious. And it's getting really irritating. So I'm not liking that either. I'm just not connecting to the story or the characters or any of it. I have been listening to a lot of this as audio through Spotify, and also a bit of a kind of immersive read, which has helped me get through it. But it's just not fun. One thing that I noticed in chapter 21 was Julian calls Scarlett Crimson, which, has he called her that nickname before in the first book? Because I don't remember that, but I hate it as a nickname. It's awful. But yeah, that is kind of where I'm at. We found out that Julian and Dante might be brothers, or that might be part of the game. I don't know. It's just getting a bit of a drag. I've only got 20% left, so it won't take me much longer, and I will be finishing it, and I will be reading finale, but I'm really not enjoying it, which is so sad to say, because I really enjoyed Caraval and I was so excited to get back into the world. But it's just, I feel like this book had a lot more potential with the characters and the story, and Tella was really interesting in the first book. Although we didn't see much of her, I thought she was a really interesting character to then explore, and now we're getting her more in this. It's not giving what I thought it would, essentially. That's where I'm at. Okay, so I have in fact finished reading Legendary, and there's a couple of things. Firstly, Scarlett's secret about being that she wants to know the Count that she was engaged to, but that she didn't actually meet in the first book. It was an okay revelation. I thought it would be something a bit more serious. I did not like the fact that she alluded to basically pinning Julian and the Count against each other. I really didn't like that storyline. It kind of ruins the first book for me, because I thought Scarlett and Julian had a really good romance, and I thought that in this book, maybe they would kind of get over the secrets that they had from one another and fix that and be together, rather than having this idea that they've been arguing this whole time, or they've had these issues and now she's looking at the Count, and it's just a bit odd. I mean, I understand that the Count from the first book obviously wasn't the actual Count, and this is someone she was engaged to, and she thought that he was a good guy, so maybe she wants to meet him just because of that. But I really don't like that has happened in her relationship, hers and Julian's relationship, and that development. Really didn't like that. At the end, it's revealed that Tella is 17, so she just turned 17, so she was 16 throughout this whole book, and so she was 15/16 in the first book, which is ridiculous. She should have been older than that. Like, she seemed older than that the whole way through, so I did not like that piece of information at all. She should have been a few years older than that. I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars, which I am really sad about, and I'm really disappointed in it. It wasn't awful, but there was so much potential with it following from the first book, Caraval, and it just felt like it fell flat. Tella was boring, the story was okay, the connections weren't really there, and it kind of felt a bit dragged out, and like we could have followed on more from the first book and really had more fun with it. So I really thought it would be better. I have now started finale, and I am about 30% of the way through. I've been listening to this as an audiobook, but now that I'm at about 30%, I'm enjoying it more than I did Legendary. I'm liking the characters that have kind of come together a bit. I'm still a bit bored with Tella and Legend's relationship, friendship, whatever's going on there. I just feel like I just don't really care. And this idea that she's kind of switching back to Jax, and there's been moments there, and it's kind of a bit, it's not really a love triangle, but it kind of is, and it's a bit boring. It's a bit of a drag. I'm not loving it. However, the main plot that's going on in this book with the Fates, I'm enjoying. That's definitely intrigued me. I like that we've got Scarlett and Julian a bit back in the picture. I'm not loving the fact that we've got the Count versus Julian, but I'm liking that Julian and Scarlett are back in the picture, that we're getting some of Scarlett's POVs, which is something that I mentioned I wanted in the previous book. So I am liking that. I do not like the fact that we spent the whole of Legendary basically having Tella trying to find her mum, only for her to die very early on in this book. It seems like the second book was kind of irrelevant, pointless, and unnecessary. So I did not like that, but maybe she'll come back. I don't know. I also don't like that Tella is making another deal with Jax, because she should have learned that from the previous book. It just feels like there's been no development in her character really. But that being said, like I mentioned, I'm liking the main plot. I'm just not liking some of the situations that are occurring specifically with Tella, because I actually think she's a really fun character and I really liked her in the first book and I've liked glimpses of her, but the way that she's been portrayed in Legendary and in this book, I'm not loving it. However, because she is, as we now know, 17 and in the previous book 16, I guess I can kind of skip over some of the things that she's thought or done, because she's a character that's a lot younger than I thought she was. But it's still making me question the book a little bit, but I'm definitely enjoying it more than I did Legendary so far anyway. So I have gotten to about 65% of the way through finale, so I'm just about to start chapter 42. At about chapter 27, we found out some information about Scarlett's parentage, which honestly was a curveball. I did not expect it. It felt kind of random, but I guess it plays into the story. So that was an interesting addition. I am still liking the main plot of the story. I'm liking Julian and Scarlett. I'm liking what's going on with the fates and all of the characters kind of coming together. I'm definitely enjoying that, but I'm still having an issue with Tella, Legendary, and Jax, and it just feels like a lot of back and forth. It's kind of a love triangle, and I'm not someone that typically enjoys love triangles unless it's done really well. I do not like this version because it feels like Tella wants Legend, and anytime they have an issue, she goes to Jax, and I'm just not liking this back and forth. It's giving me a bit of whiplash, and I'm really not enjoying it. I'm also struggling with the age of Tella. It just doesn't feel like it suits what her character is doing. I'm not liking that either, and I just feel like Tella had a lot of potential, and it's not really been explored in Legendary or in this book. And I think because I have an issue with the love triangle situation, that is what made me rate Legendary even lower, because it was a big part of that plot and that story, and it's still come into play here. I'm still enjoying this more than I did Legendary, but I've definitely got qualms with some of it. That is where I'm at. I don't know if I'm going to update you again until the end, unless I have some major thoughts that I really want to talk about, but that is kind of where I'm at right now. Okay, so I did originally say that I wasn't going to update you until I finished the book, but I've got about 10% left, so I figured I would give you a bit of an update before I complete this. I'm either going to complete this tonight or tomorrow night, not sure which. My thoughts on what's happened most recently. Chapter 42, where Scarlett gets caged, we learn a little bit more about the fallen star. We're getting a little bit more magic. I've really been enjoying those kind of vibes, that kind of story. Scarlett getting caged I did not expect it, but I thought it brought a little bit more to the story with the magic and those kind of things. So I really liked that. Chapter 43, where Tella had her immortal marriage with Jax. I thought that was really interesting, and I didn't think it would get broken so quickly. I thought it might be a bit more part of the story, but then I realized we're right at the end. And then later on, when Jax did his like kind of confession to Tella, made me realize why there is another trilogy based on him, because yeah, I can see why. It makes sense. So I am looking forward to reading that trilogy at some point. Chapter 45, where Tella saw the mural that Legend had, and it had her depicted on there. I thought that was so gorgeous. It was such a stunning way to reveal kind of their connection as well, and I really, really liked that. And honestly, it's only in this last quarter of the book that the love triangle started to make sense, just because we were getting a little bit more of Legend and Jax, whereas before it was just irritating me with the whole back and forth. But in this last kind of quarter, I actually quite enjoyed it because it was done better. It felt like there was more connection there for the love triangle to even exist. Chapter 51, where Scarlett had to remove Julian's love for her. Oh, that was so heartbreaking. I'm so glad she stopped, but I was listening to the audiobook of that chapter, and so hearing Julian's character be in pain from that, it was such a gorgeous but heartbreaking chapter, but I really enjoyed it. I am now on what chapter am I on? Chapter 55, where Scarlett has gone back in time and she is witnessing and talking to her mother, and that has been really interesting. I really liked this chapter as well. This last kind of third or quarter of the book I really enjoyed. So I have got 10% left and we'll see where we end up once this is completed. I have in fact finished reading Finale and I am giving this 3.75 stars. I like the way that things concluded. I liked the cast of characters that we ended up with. I liked the integration of the Fates and Scarlet and Julian and Teller. I also enjoyed the love triangle in the last third of the book, and the way that Jax's arc concluded in this book has made me want to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, whereas when I was reading Legendary I didn't have that feeling, but I do have that now that I finished this. Overall, this series is going to be a 3.75 star series. The first book is still my favorite. I'm still a bit disappointed about the second one, but I've kind of gotten over it now, and this one definitely brought it back up. I liked the conclusion to Julian and Scarlet. I like the fact that Teller ended up with Legend. I think it made sense, and I think they ended up being quite cute together. And yeah, I did enjoy this book overall. Like I said, I still enjoyed the main plot, the main story of this, and it wasn't as good as Caraval, but I liked it as it was. So I am looking forward to reading the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, probably in springtime. I think that's when I'm going to want to read it. But that is where I got with this. That is now this trilogy complete, which was actually one of my main priorities for winter, one of my main reading priorities for winter. So that is now done. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!